You do not keep people around you who keep you in fight or flight mode. You cannot think that you are the exception just because you are empathetic or because you have compassion towards somebody, you're understanding because you understand their trauma. You cannot think that you are the exception and you are so great that people will change for you. You cannot think that you can love somebody into changing. You are not God, okay? Sometimes the person you're praying for, you have to understand God loves them too, and that's why He has not sent them to you. I'm going to tell you the 5 things that really helped me rebrand myself and change my life from the inside out and go from being somebody who was afraid of being perceived to making a video telling you how I got over it, somebody who lived for external validation to finally getting over that and being my authentic self and creating a podcast and showing up online authentically and in my vulnerability, and also somebody who spent the first part of my life building a successful career in a field that I wasn't passionate about and then walking away from it and walking in my God-given purpose. This is not going to be some cutesy chat GPT Googled advice. I'm not going to tell you to create a vision board. I'm going to tell you the actual things that I did to truly help me transform my life. And I will also be getting in your business and giving you some tough advice, but it is necessary advice, okay? These are some hard truths, some tough things that I had to do to really get over myself and really change my life from the inside out. If you're not new here, you already know I'm going to be calling you out by your full government name. If you are new, welcome. And brace yourself. So starting off strong with number 1. My first tip is to take inventory of your life, take a hard look at yourself, and then identify areas for improvement. Now, when you do this, I want you to focus on accountability versus blame or being a victim. So let's use relationships as an example. And I mean all types of relationships, not just romantic, like friends, family, etc., right? I want you to really think about maybe your last couple of relationships or the significant relationships in your life. And I want you to really take inventory and take an assessment of how they have been going. Or think about the ones that have went wrong or the ones that are not going too well. In your relationships, unless it's a healthy, ideal relationship, you are either the problem, the toxic one, the manipulative one, the one causing all of the drama, and you're justifying it because you feel like that is how you protect yourself because you've been hurt in the past, or you are the one who is being hurt primarily because you are dealing with people who want to take advantage of you, people who are taking you for granted, and you are not communicating and you are not enforcing boundaries, or maybe you don't even have boundaries and you are not standing up for yourself, right? Unless it's healthy, you're on either one of those spectrums, right? Let's say you are the toxic one, the selfish one, the one who talks to people with no type of respect, the one who always puts themselves first at the expense of others, the one who doesn't consider other people, right? Let's say you are the selfish one, you are the problem. And there have been situations, relationships in my life where I have been the problem. So I'm going to be speaking on it from my perspective as well. And if the shoe fits, then you can wear it, okay? But let's say you are the problem. The thing is, when I was in that phase, when I'm thinking of, all of the manipulation and like the things that were wrong with me in the past, my thing was I always felt justified in my selfishness and in my toxicity and my manipulation, because to me that was a form of preservation. That was a form of protecting myself, right? I had been hurt in the past by other people. I had been taken for granted. I had been taken advantage of. And I felt like I needed to develop this alter ego, this manipulative, selfish alter ego that always put myself first at the expense of others. And I did not treat people the best. And all of it was because of hurt. All of it was because of trying to protect myself, trying to protect that little girl who people walked all over, right? So because I was coming from a place of hurt, I felt justified in how I treated people. But maturing, right? Maturing is realizing that you do not keep people around you who keep you in fight or flight mode. You do not keep people around you who bring out such a toxic side of you or bring out a version of you that is so unhealthy because you feel like you need to protect yourself. Maturing is realizing that you need to set boundaries and standards for yourself, and boundaries is the standards and the expectations that you have on yourself, not what you try to force other people to do, by the way. Maturity is realizing that you need to set and enforce boundaries for yourself, where you say, if this person does this thing that triggers triggers me, that hurts me, that disrespects me, I am going to walk away from that relationship. I am not going to tolerate it. It's when you don't have or enforce boundaries and you allow these people into your lives. Now you are putting on this selfish alter ego. You are putting on this, toxic mask. You are being manipulative. You are doing all of these things, playing all of these games, right? Just a toxic roller coaster with people because you are not doing what you need to do to protect your space, to protect your peace. You're allowing these toxic people in and they are causing you to react in that way, right? And also, you have not healed. Maturity is also realizing that you have to heal that version of yourself that got hurt. You have to prioritize your healing because unless you do that, you will always be toxic. You will always be manipulative. You will always be selfish and you will always feel justified in doing it because you're trying to protect yourself. But it starts with your boundaries. I had to learn that. It started with my boundaries. I had to do the work to heal and then I had to do the work to keep people away from me who wanted to take, right? People who wanted to take advantage, who wanted to just use me or manipulate me, people who did not have my best interest at heart, right? Instead of allowing myself to have a hardened heart, to have all of this pain, to be nonchalant, to be, somebody I was not for the sake of protecting myself, I just stopped keeping people around me that made me feel like I needed to protect myself from them. Now, on the flip side, if you are the person who is often getting hurt, often getting taken advantage of, etc., I want to challenge you here, right? This might hurt your feelings, but at the end of the day, if I don't say this, you might just remain stuck in this pattern. And I have also been on the flip side when I have been hurt, and this is what helped me, okay? You have to push past that temptation of playing the victim role and take a hard look at yourself and say, what about me is allowing people to treat me this way? Why am I allowing people to walk all over me? Why am I so afraid to communicate and say how I feel? Why am I being passive aggressive or petty when somebody hurts my feelings or doesn't respect me instead of communicating how I feel? Or instead of setting a boundary that I am not going to tolerate this so that I can keep those people out of my life? Why am I allowing myself to play the victim in these situations? Why am I letting people walk all over me? Why am I allowing myself to remain a people pleaser? Why am I allowing myself to be in relationships with people when they are not who I want, but I'm waiting on them to change? I'm looking at potential, right? Who they could be. And I'm allowing myself to get hurt in the process of them possibly becoming that person, even though they're showing me no signs that they're actually becoming that person that I want them to be. Why do I feel so afraid to actually set boundaries and accept what I want instead of settling and waiting for people to treat me right at their convenience? Why am I playing it so small? Why am I settling, right? You cannot always play the victim role. It does not help you to be a victim. And this is coming from somebody who was in a perpetual state of victimhood. I always wanted people to feel so sorry for me. I always wanted people to apologize and acknowledge what they did and actually show remorse. I would always look at things from the perspective of this person did this to me. Why is this happening to me? Why does my life look that way? And that was back when I was a teenager. And you know what happened as a result of that? It almost led to my, how do I say this modestly? My premature expiration, if you get what I'm saying, right? I've talked about this before, but that was one of the things that literally made me spiral into almost doing something catastrophic, because when I had that mindset, that perspective of looking at everything as life happening to me, it made me feel extremely defeated. I had to change my mindset on how I view these situations in order to get better. So I'm not saying this to shame you. I'm saying this as someone who has been there and pulled myself out of that. It doesn't serve you to be a victim. If people did something to you where they hurt you, you need to understand that that is the closure, okay? You do not wait around trying to emotionally manipulate people into feeling sorry for you. You do not walk around throwing a pity party trying to make people feel bad for hurting you. You do not go around trying to beg people for an explanation, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, whether somebody hurt you because they genuinely did not care about you, or they hurt you because they are hurt too and hurt people, all it comes down to is that they hurt you. And at the end of the day, if you are the type of person who keeps thinking, oh, well, maybe, you know what, I know what they've been through. You try to be empathetic, you try to have compassion, you try to say, oh, well, you know what, I know what they've been through, I've seen the trauma that they've been through, that's probably why they did this to me. Because I understand where they're coming from, I am going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I am going to give them an exception. I am going to, let it slide and be more patient with them because I know that they're hurt. Let me tell you something, okay? It doesn't matter why they hurt you. You need to set your mind on the fact that they did hurt you, right? Because here's the thing, when they hurt you, did that heal them? No, they are still hurt. So if you wait around waiting for them to heal, you know what's going to happen? You're going to continue to get hurt. And at the end of the day, you're going to feel bad, and you're either going to have resentment for yourself for not leaving sooner, or you are going to play this victim game like, woe is me and look at what they did to me. But like, the signs were there, okay? You cannot love someone into changing. You cannot love somebody. You cannot think that you are the exception just because you are empathetic or because you have compassion towards somebody, you're understanding because you understand their trauma. You cannot think that you are the exception and you are so great that people will change for you. You cannot think that you can love somebody into changing. You are not God, okay? That is God's job. Only God's love can change a person. Your love cannot change a person. People change on their own time. People change when it's their time to change. People change when they decide. People change when it's their time. When something happens, and it usually has nothing to do with anybody else, it usually doesn't have anything to do with the influence of anybody or anything else. People just arrive to a point in their life for different reasons where something happens and it launches them on a process of changing. I don't want you to be deceived by pride and ego that you are so great, that you are an exception, that you can love somebody into changing. You do not have that power. Only God can do that. When did you become the fourth person in the Godhead, right? Is it not the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit? Are you the fourth person? When did you become ordained to be the fourth person? You can love them and you can do all of that, and then it's after they almost break you. Then maybe in hindsight, they might look back after they change for whatever reason and they'll say, you know what? This person really cared, but guess what? Now you are broken, right? You cannot stay there and wait. That is not your job. All you can do is give that person up in prayer, okay? And you know how I know this? From being on both ends of the spectrum. I have been the one who has tried to love somebody into changing, and I have been the one who somebody has tried to love me into changing. And when I was that person, I knew I wasn't changing for anybody. Okay, because I was stubborn, I was hurt, I was not saved. Okay, that was pre-Jesus. The only thing that saved me and changed my character and helped me become a better person was me growing in my relationship with God. It wasn't anybody. I wasn't going to change for anybody. Okay, God had to heal my heart. God had to chase me. God had to pursue me. God did what he did, and because of that, I changed. Because of that, he produced fruit in me. But it wasn't because of anybody. Nobody was going to change me. Okay. And sometimes when you show yourself as a type of person who thinks that they can love somebody into changing them, you run the risk of coming across a very manipulative person who's going to see that and take advantage of you, because they know that as long as they treat you like crap, you will stay there and think that you can change them. Do not play yourself into thinking that you can change a person, okay? And do not have the mindset of thinking that I'm a victim and look at this and all of these things happen to me. You need to take a hard look at your life and say, if people just keep hurting me and walking all over me, what about me is allowing them to do that? What do I need to change? How can I heal? What broke me and made me become a people pleaser? What is the source of all of my people pleasing tendencies? Why do I have all these issues? Why can't I communicate when I am hurt? Why can't I speak up when I'm hurt, right? You have to take a hard look at yourself and look at these things. Go back to wherever broke you, because until you heal that, until you fix that, you will always low-key struggle with these things, and it's going to affect your relationship. And I want to give this disclaimer too. When it comes to certain things, what happened to you might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility, especially as an adult, to heal from it. Okay? I am somebody who has been a victim of, certain things that children should not experience. I've seen things that children should not witness. I've experienced certain things. Like, I know what I'm talking about, okay? And for the longest time, I had this thing where there was a lot of shame about it. I was not addressing it. I like wanted to bury it and never look at it. But it wasn't until God forced me to look at it that I realized how it was affecting me in so many other areas of my life. And I had to heal from that. It's only because I healed from that it doesn't affect me in the ways that it used to. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. Believe me, I'm not saying I'm perfect. Okay. God reveals something in my heart very often that I have to work on. But I'm speaking to you as somebody who has been doing the work. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm trying to make it very clear that even the worst of worst things that has happened to you, that has not been your fault, that you had no say over, that you may have been a child, it's not your fault what happens, but it is your responsibility to heal from it. Because I can tell you, for me specifically, I am not anointed for celibacy. Now, let me just be clear. Celibacy is like, when you take a vow, a lifetime vow to be just dedicated to God, like no relationships, no marriage, no relationships, or no relations of any kind, right? Abstinence is when people abstain from something for a specific period of time, but it has an end date, right? So abstinence in terms of relationships, when people abstain from sex, then you abstain from a certain period of time, ideally till marriage, because that is God's way, right? I have not been anointed for celibacy, but I have been anointed for abstinence, right? I cannot do anything about my attraction to the opposite sex. Therefore, if there is something that happened to me when I was a child that could potentially impact my relationships with the opposite sex, because I know that I cannot do anything, I cannot just destroy and get rid of my attraction for the opposite sex, it is my responsibility to work on what could affect those relationships. You see what I mean? Especially in my single season. Because side note, sometimes the person you're praying for, you have to understand God loves them too, and that's why he has not sent them to you. God loves us and he loves the person that he's going to send to you, and sometimes we are the problem. You cannot think that just because you have a desire to get married, for example, that just when you ask God, he's going to send it. There is work that needs to be done, right? And sometimes we think like, oh, the dating pool has penis and da-da-da-da. Sweetheart, you should not be dating. You should not be dating. You should be focusing on your healing, right? Because it's not just because you have the desire and not just because you feel ready that you are actually ready. Sometimes the reason why God hasn't sent that person is because he's protecting them from you. You have to heal too. You have to prioritize that in your single season. There's nothing wrong with the desire. I am not saying to remain alone until you fully heal, because I don't think full healing is like even a thing. But I'm saying sometimes it's because you're not prioritizing your healing that could be affecting you. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Just a quick little side tangent. But the first point is you have to take inventory of your life. You have to take a hard look at yourself, at your life in different areas. I just gave you the example of relationships. That's a good place to start because relationships are important. It's a part of your life. You have to take a hard look at your life and you have to identify your areas for improvement. Focus on accountability versus blame and being a victim, because when you start blaming people, well, this person did this and this person did that, and look at what happened to me, you give all of your power away and you just put yourself in a defeated state. But when you take accountability and you say, okay, well, what about me is causing this? What can I do about this? Now you shift the power back in your hand and you start finding all these possibilities of things that you can do to improve your situation. And a lot of it has to do with boundaries. And if you struggle to do this, if you really don't even know where to start, you don't know what to look at, I have journals that can actually help you. They are journal prompts that I created myself. I came up with them myself. They will call you out by your full government name, just like I plan on doing in this episode and like I do on this podcast. And trust me, once you start going through them, you will find a couple of things that you need to fix and that you need to work on. Okay, this is not no like, how's your day going, what are your goals for the day type of journal prompts. Okay, they will snatch you, they will get you together. Okay, so if you don't know where to start, you can start there. Just go to secludedthoughts.com/journals. Now, the second thing, which is very important to add, is to accept yourself and grow from a place of self-acceptance versus self-loathing. My perspective on self-improvement is literally just removing all of the dust and the clutter and the pain and the hurt and all of the walls in front of who you truly are that you put up to protect yourself because life got to you, right? You've been through certain things. You lost people. You got hurt. You got heartbroken. You lost jobs. You lost yourself. You thought you wanted something and then it turns out that's not what you wanted, but you invested a lot of time in it and now you're doubting yourself. You're struggling to trust yourself. You're struggling to trust people. People hurt you. People lied on you. People, like, life will throw all of these things at you that will make you start shedding who you really are, or almost like putting on a mask to protect yourself and putting up walls to keep people out and prevent the true you, the authentic you from coming out. Because then there's also the thing about external validation and like being in a sensitive culture where people want to cancel you if you have a different opinion and all of these things. Like, the environment we live in causes people to put up so many walls and try to be like other people and try to be performative. People struggle to just be their authentic self. So when I look at self-improvement, my perspective is shedding all of the walls and the lies that are preventing you from being your authentic self, that are preventing you from being the person that God called you to be. Breaking down those walls and then challenging yourself to be yourself, to be your best self, and to walk in your God-given purpose. But my passion for self-improvement has always come from me being a very introspective person, me being somebody who has been through some things in life, and instead of being a victim like I used to in the beginning, I started trying to learn the lessons in these hard situations that I was going through, because I didn't want them to be wasted. I didn't want to just suffer and then learn nothing from it and then end up in that cycle again. So it stemmed from me being introspective and like trying to learn the lessons. And that's literally what I talk about on the podcast. That's literally what I share on the podcast. Because if you think about it, you can Google reinvent yourself, rebrand yourself. You can Google the topics that I talk about on this podcast, and not all, but a lot of people, you might get content that sound like they literally just got these points from ChatGPT. I do not use ChatGPT to help me plan podcast notes. I literally might get an idea. God might put an idea on my mind, or there might be something that is maybe a trending topic like reinventing yourself, but I never look up the points to add in my episode. I literally speak from my personal experience. I try to always give you a fresh perspective, and it usually is because it's my personal perspective. Now, why am I even telling you this? Why is this important? Because I used to think that I was doing too much when I would like think a lot and overthink my situations and try to learn from it. I started doing this when I was 16, y'all. Like when I was 16 years old, I started like trying to assess and analyze my situations and try to learn from them. And That's why sometimes people say, oh, you're so wise for your age, whatever. I've been doing this since I was 16. Right? And at first, when God called me to create a podcast, sometimes I had like imposter syndrome. I thought that I had to be like other people. I was afraid to let my true personality shine. But the reason why I talk about what I talk about and it flows so effortlessly is not just because, it's primarily because, God has anointed me for this, okay? Period, first and foremost. But also it's because I simply just share my personality, because I'm not trying to hide it. When we talk about reinventing yourself, when we talk about accepting yourself and improving, it's me learning my strengths. My strength is me being introspective. My strength is me being an introvert. So I like genuine conversations. So I let that show in my podcast. I let that show in the way I speak to you, right? I do things that feel natural to me. I try to do things that feel natural to me and not things that are trendy, right? So I accept who I am. And then from that, I learn skills about editing or recording. I try to build on these things. So I accept myself and then I challenge myself to do better and improve over time. But I'm essentially doing things that accentuate who I truly am. Okay? I am operating from a place of self-acceptance. I love myself, so I'm going to play to my strengths, use the things that God has given me, and challenge myself to do better in the areas that I'm not the best at, or the areas of my strengths that could still use some improvement. You have to accept yourself, accept the things that make you different, and then challenge yourself to be the best version of yourself. Challenge yourself to improve and learn, but you do not try to get better by hating yourself and saying, well, I'm not good in this area. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not doing this well enough. I need to completely change my life. You don't need to completely uproot everything and become a new person. There's nothing wrong with the person that God created, okay? Could you do some things better? Yes, but you have to accept what God has given you, okay? Even the tough things, even the challenges, because when I was in that victim mentality, when I was spiraling, when I just said, you know what? all of these things that I've had to deal with, that I shouldn't have had to deal with, that I shouldn't have had to witness, I cannot change it. I cannot change it. I cannot be bitter about it. I have to accept it. And then I started to learn from it. And in that, when I developed that maturity and I started healing, I can now, God is using it years later to help me share these stories on a podcast to hopefully help you, right? But I had to accept it. You have to accept who you are. Now that I'm focusing on my health journey, I am accepting my body. I used to always try to be, slim thick because that's popular, like toned and nice, up top and then heavy set at the bottom. Me working out was purely to obtain a certain body type. I don't do that anymore. I accept myself. I am skinny. I accept it. I grew up in a country where people always told me that I needed to eat because I grew up in the Caribbean. I grew up in a country where people always told me that I needed to eat and that, they teased me all the time for it and it made me very insecure. And I always tried to work out and stuff to try to be slim, thick, to try to put on weight. I learned to just accept my body, accept the body that God gave me. And then now my fitness and my health routine is from the place of improving my health. I love my body. I accept it. And now I'm just going to work out so that I am more flexible. I am stronger and I am more fit and active. I'm doing it for my health now, not because I hate my body and I feel like I need to change it. When you operate from a place of hate, from self-loathing, in that example, you'll see your body as everything that's wrong. You see all the things that are wrong. And that's how people often end up feeling like they need to do some type of plastic and cosmetic surgery, right? You stop feeling like you are missing something. You stop feeling like something has to change in order for you to accept yourself. You can do those things. You can do those things because you feel like it's a nice, cute little enhancement. Like, I'm not knocking it because you don't know why people do certain things. Some people do it because, they just want to enhance. Some people do it because they're incredibly insecure. That's not my business. Do whatever you want. But I just found that personally, when I learned to accept myself, I stopped looking at all the things that I'm missing. I stopped feeling like I wasn't good enough. And I just looked at what I had. I loved it. I accepted it. And I said, okay, how can I make this better? Right? Now, the third thing that has really, really helped me is to make more decisions and make them faster. Let me tell you a story of how this affected me and why I'm including this. So a couple of months ago, I found myself in a state where I felt like analysis paralysis. I was afraid to make decisions because I felt like the decisions I had made thus far did not lead me to the place that I wanted to get. So I was afraid to make a decision. I was talking to God. I was telling him, I will not move until you tell me which move to make, right? You have to tell me which move to make and then how to make the move. I wanted him to be incredibly detailed. And I felt like I wasn't hearing from him. I wasn't getting the answers that I was looking for. So I stood still. And it literally put me in a state where I felt like I was spiraling. Like I stood still and time was moving. And I was just feeling so anxious, like I wasn't making progress. It was a lot, right? And then what ended up happening was I started therapy during that time, and my therapist helped me get to a point where I made a decision. And the decision I made at that point in time was to do something that I didn't even end up following through with. But it was the fact that I decided to do something. When it did not work out, I could do something else. But I realized the funk that I found myself in was indecision. It was the fact that I refused to make a decision. That has never happened to me in that extent before. I was afraid to make a decision, and I realized that I want to explain something to you from my previous job that I thought was so incredibly good, especially for life, let alone just a job. So at my former company, there's this concept of doors. There's one-way doors and two-way doors, right? One-way doors are the decisions that you make that are either irreversible or extremely difficult and tedious to reverse or fix. So you're supposed to take time and really prepare and really assess whether or not you should make that decision before you make it. So an example of a one-way door would be selling everything you own and leaving the country and starting over in a new country. This example is reversible because you could always go back, but it is significantly harder to reverse because you sold everything, you changed your address, you applied for legal paperwork, you're likely coming back with nothing. You probably left your job. If you didn't leave on good terms with people, it's you may not have something to come back to. It will take a lot of planning and assessment, etc., to try to reverse that decision, right? So ideally, if you want to leave the country, you would take more time planning it out and making sure you check all of the boxes to the best of your ability. These decisions are examples of one-way doors, right? You have to put a lot of thought into these things because it is very hard to come back from, or it's not possible to come back from it at all. A two-way door is the type of decision that is very easily reversed, or it's very quick to implement. So for example, if you say you want to create content, right? You want to start a YouTube channel. That's a very easy decision. You get a camera or you use your iPhone, whatever you can record, you record something, you maybe edit it, you maybe don't, you upload it, boom, you have a YouTube channel. That's it. It's very simple. It's very simple. And if you don't like it, you know what you can do? Delete the video, delete the account, done. Reverse. Same thing for TikTok, same thing for Instagram, same thing for any type of content. If you decide I want to be a content creator, you can literally start uploading today and boom, you're a content creator. But you can start today and get the experience. And if you don't like it, you can delete that account today, or the very next day, or the moment that you feel like it's not for you, you can delete that account. It's a two-way door. It's very easy. It's a very easy decision. It can be reversed. It can be implemented very easily. Now, the whole purpose of the concept of the one-way doors versus two-way doors is to get you to see that the decisions that you spend a lot of time focusing on need to be the one-way doors, right? Because these are harder to reverse or impossible to reverse, you have to spend a lot of time, effort, and energy planning out these decisions. You do not spend time being meticulous about two-way doors or quick decisions, right? If you want to leave the country, yes, you should spend a significant amount of time doing your research, getting your paperwork together, figuring out the timeline of selling things and when you're going to move. But if you say you want to be a content creator, you do not spend 6 months procrastinating and thinking about what type of content you're going to create. Maybe I need a camera, because it's very easy to start and it's very easy to change your mind and end it. So I need you to assess the current choices, the current decisions that are in front of you, and I need you to identify what are the one-way doors and what are the two-way doors, right? And you need to assess how much time you've been spending on these things, because I can bet that you are probably spending way too much time on the two-way door decisions that can be easily implemented and easily edited, and the things that you actually need to focus on, the things that are actual big decisions, if you have any, you're not spending enough time on them, or the fact that you're procrastinating over here with the two-way doors is taking away time from the things that actually need your effort and energy. You see what I mean? It's time for you to start creating momentum, okay? The 8 months you spend thinking of whether or not you should be a content creator, you could have had 8 months of experience, 8 months of progress, 8 months of momentum, but you're here contemplating a decision that could be easily changed if you just start today. The thing about implementing the concept of one-way door and two-way door decisions is that you get to make decisions based on experience versus wishful thinking. You get to decide how you feel about something based on experience versus wishful thinking. If you wanted to start the content, instead of taking 3 months to procrastinate and try to perfect and do all this rubbish, in 3 months you could have momentum, you could have experience, you can say, you know what, I actually don't like this, I'm not doing this anymore. Boom, done. Now you have the mental capacity to think about something else, to try something else, to learn something else without the what if of should I be a content creator. If it's a decision that is easily reversible, sweetheart, you need to get to a point where you make it quickly, because the world is not going to end if you change your mind, okay? If you decide to go back to school and then you decide to drop out, the world is not going to end. If you thought you wanted to do pottery, or you wanted to start drawing, you wanted to learn art or something, and you started doing it and then you change your mind a week in, the world is not going to end. You have crossed off a what if. It's not bothering you anymore. It's a decision that can be made quickly and can also be ended quickly. Do not spend a year or the next 6 months procrastinating or trying to perfect something that you have not even started, okay? Look at the decisions that are before you and decide whether it's a one-way door or a two-way door, and allocate your time, effort, and energy accordingly. Now, the fourth thing is you need to build a foundation rooted in the Word of God. Now, hear me out. If you're a Christian, I need you to pay attention and listen carefully. If you are a non-believer, I challenge you to listen. I am not here to convert you. I'm not trying to give you a religious pitch. I speak the language of non-believers as somebody who used to be atheist myself. I always thought a relationship with God was just like a religious thing. You go to church one day a week and whatever. But ever since I have grown in my relationship, I'm going to tell you the actual practicalities of why I would even suggest this, because it's not something that people would commonly state in a video like this, okay? So just hear me out and decide for yourself. So I used to be atheist, right? I used to be atheist in my teenage years. If God had a biggest up walking the earth, it was me, okay? I used to be atheist because I looked at my life, I looked at the things that I was experiencing, the traumatic events that I've endured, the things that I was still constantly enduring. I looked at everything that was happening in my life, and I was like, there is either no God in heaven, right? That's either a lie, he doesn't exist, or if he does exist, he's not a good God, or he just genuinely hates me, so I am not going to worship him. And then on top of that, I went to a Catholic school. I didn't grow up in church. Me going to a Catholic school was like my church, my exposure to church growing up. And on top of that, my experiences with Christians and like religious people was not the best. I was like, okay, so regardless of whether God is real or he is good or he actually loves me, like people say, look at his believers. These people are a bunch of hypocrites, like literally just walking around condemning me, shouting, jumping for joy, and all of this talking about God is love and da da da. But then when it's time for you to show me love, when it's time for you to act in the way that the Bible tells you, the Bible that you have been talking about tells you to do, suddenly you become Jesus Christ walking the earth telling me that I'm going to go to hell, right? Because I didn't have a religion growing up, like a denomination. People used to call me heathen. They used to call me Satan. They used to call me devil, right? All of that, like the Christians who were like preaching this good God, this is how they treated me. So because of all of these things, I was atheist. I said, I'm not going to worship this God. I don't want any no parts of this whatsoever, right? Now, fast forward, God saved my life, and literally he pursued me down. Like when I say God pursued me, I wasn't like a born into the faith type of person. God pursued me, okay? He pursued me, and he was very patient. And literally, it started off with me having an encounter with him where I truly got to experience the love that they were talking about, that they were not able to exhibit. And that defied all logic, because I used to be the logical person trying to argue with Christians and persecute them and tell them, you don't actually believe these things in the Bible, do you? Like trying to discredit it. And then God encountered me in a way that defied logic. He encountered me with a love that I could not explain. But even in that, I was not fully converted. I was just like, coming off of a rough patch, and it was like, why did you save my life, right? And in that, it was a journey, because the reason I'm saying this is because when Christians talk about faith and the God and all of these things, they always have like this sparkle in their eye, and they talk about, oh, I just love Jesus, and that's how I am now. I truly love the Lord. Okay, I truly love the Lord, but it did not start off that way. Me going to God initially, I remember asking God, I said, you know what, God, I feel like you're very controlling and manipulative, and I don't actually agree with the way you do things. Now you're chasing me down. You like for months, I had this thing like go to church, start reading the Bible. For months, you're chasing me down, but there's a lot of things about you and the way you do things, from what I've heard and from what I've seen, that I don't agree with. To me, it sounds like you're manipulative. It sounds like you're controlling. I don't know how I feel about these things. I actually went to God, and that's something that I said. And if you've been here for a while, based on that, you can attest I've come a long way in the faith, because we started off rough, okay? But then I finally got to a point, because God was patient. I finally got to a point where I was, okay, I'm a Christian. I love you. But here's the thing. I was lukewarm. I was lukewarm because I wasn't surrendered. When I talked to God, I would tell him about my plans. It was my plans. Here, God, this is what I want to do. These are the desires of my heart that I believe that you placed there. So these are my plans. Bless it. That was the nature of my relationship with him, right? It was my will, not his will. Then I surrendered, did a fast, surrendered, and started fasting and going to him, seeking his face, right? Above everything, seeking his face, truly trying to put him first and allowing him to change my character. And this is where I tell you why I suggested this. I had to give you that context, that background in knowledge, right? When I changed my relationship with God, and I decided to actually surrender to him and not just use him as somebody who was my crisis hotline, like save me, but don't change me. Save me, but don't tell me what to do, right? When I started submitting to his will, he started changing my character. He started revealing the things in my heart. You know how the Bible says, create in me a clean heart? He started revealing the things in my heart. God revealed that there was so much pride and pain in my heart when I started going to him fasting. When I just started seeking his face, he revealed so much pain and pride in my heart that if he had not done that, Listen, I would not be the person I am today, right? When we talk about rebranding yourself, reinventing yourself, all that type of thing, I want you to realize that the most important thing that you could do is to be grounded in something unshakable and to focus on your internal growth instead of always trying to appear like you have it together on the outside, okay? True transformation comes from when you allow God to really change your heart, right? When God revealed all of that pride in my heart, it shocked me and it showed me how I literally would have sabotaged everything that I was working hard for if I had kept that pride in check. Why? Because pride is the one thing that God hates more than anything, because when you have pride in your heart, it literally blinds you and deceives you into making yourself an idol, into making you selfish and self-centered, making you feel like everything is in your control, everything is at the tip of your fingers, like everything is so easily accessible. It makes you entitled. That's why God hates it, right? When you have pride, you are not submitted to God. You're not submitted to His will. I had pride because of all of the pain of being hyper independent and self-reliant in my youth. It made me unable to fully trust God and to trust Him to be my provider, to trust Him to take care of me, because I always had to take care of myself. So that was affecting my relationship. I had pride in my heart from people always leaving me to do things on my own and not helping me and not supporting me. I had pride in my heart that made me feel like I had to get success to have revenge and feel like, and kind of take it like an FU, forgive me, Lord, to other people, because it's like, you didn't help me, you didn't do anything for me, you didn't support me, and look, I still made it. I was carrying bitterness and resentment, and the pride was doing that. I had pride in my heart because I felt like just because I was putting in a lot of work, putting in the effort to work on my podcast, to like do these things, that I was entitled to God growing my platform and all of these things, because I felt like I had been putting in the work. Mind you, I wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't even be alive if He didn't come back to save me, because I had that victim mentality that almost made me, expire. I wouldn't even be here. And in His grace and mercy, He brought me this far, and I'm acting entitled to the point where I'm mad at Him for not giving me things that are in my will, because I feel like He should have given it to me by then. Pride, straight pride in my heart. Now, you might be thinking, oh, okay, what does that have to do with anything? If you have pride in your heart and it goes unchecked, whenever you're in a position of success, that is going to lead to your downfall. That is going to lead to you getting embarrassed because your head is too big. Your head is too big. You keep seeing yourself as more important than you are. That's why God said He needs us to be humble. Have you ever noticed that some successful people, not all, some successful people that are doing really well, making a lot of money, their head is so big, they think they are entitled to people, to things, to certain treatment, to certain experiences. They act like they are better than you, right? When some people come up to certain celebrities, they're like, shrug at them or roll their eyes at them, forgetting that these people who support you are the reason why you have a platform, are the reason why you're successful, right? Pride is the reason people's head get too big and they embarrass themselves and they squander and sabotage everything in the end. So if God did not check the pride in my heart, I could have ended up in a situation where I embarrassed myself and I destroyed everything I worked hard for because I was entitled. That's why God wants us to be humble. That's why you should be mindful of people who feel like being humble is a flaw. Godly humility is for your protection, because God will always humble the pride and He will exalt the humble, right? Because He can trust you with it, because you don't feel entitled. You will be grateful. You are grateful for the people who support you. You are grateful for your platform. You are grateful for your job. God will exalt the humble because He knows He can trust you with more, because pride makes you entitled. Pride makes you entitled at your job. God, you prayed for that job. You wanted that job so bad, and then you got it, and now you feel entitled. You're treating it with contempt, acting like you're doing people a favor when you do your job, when you do what's required of you, right? Acting like you can do anything, operating outside of integrity because you feel entitled, right? When you were struggling, you were grateful, you were begging, you were pleading, you desperately wanted that opportunity, but now pride seeped in and now you're treating it with contempt. You're treating it like you did not cry when you got that opportunity, right? So because I have been building that foundation in God, because I've been rooted in God, because He has shown me the way pride has changed me and He has gotten it out of me, and I work daily to make sure that it does not sneak back in. That is why I would recommend it. Because here's the thing too, I know, like, the contrary or the alternative to having a relationship with God, the most popular alternative is manifestation, like new age spirituality, that type of stuff, right? But the thing with that is that type of stuff is rooted in pride. It's rooted in you feeling like everything is at the tip of your fingers. Everything is based on what you want, what you desire. And the thing about that is, when you have these desires and all of these things and you don't have a relationship with God, a lot of them are often rooted in external validation. It's often rooted in getting praise for people. It's often rooted in society's version of success. It's often rooted in all of these external things, and it also does not build your character. It does not build your character, right? Having a relationship with God, He will produce the fruit in you: patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. God, having a relationship with God, being surrendered to Him, He will produce those fruit. That changes your character. That makes you a better person. When you go the alternative route with New Age and you just try to focus on your desires and manifesting things, it makes you an idol. It puts you in the position that God should be in, and then you get big-headed. You get very prideful. Everything is about you, right? And when you have that pride, again, you risk getting to a point where you start treating people with contempt. You start acting entitled. You start feeling like you're the exception. You start expecting certain things from people, because it doesn't teach you to surrender to anything greater than yourself, right? It puts you at the center of everything. And I'm saying this as somebody who used to dabble in it and mix it with Christianity. But the crazy thing was, when I was like, doing affirmations and doing all of these things with the universe, and I was also saying, I love the Lord, when there was an issue that was out of my control or something traumatic, like if somebody got sick or if there was something scary, I wasn't trying to manifest. I wasn't going to the universe. I was going to God. We know what to run to when we feel like we're out of options. But as soon as things are looking good, as soon as you get comfortable, all of a sudden, now it's the universe. Now it's pride, right? That's when pride starts seeping in. And having a relationship with God, as somebody who went into my faith very logical, very much needing to understand everything, that is a logical way that I have realized that my relationship has truly made me a better person, because not only has it changed my character, but it has truly made me more humble and have humility and have gratitude for the things around me, and to never get too big-headed, never get too full of myself, right? Never be too arrogant, never walk around entitled like God or anybody owes me anything, right? A lot of the alternatives do not produce that type of character and level of integrity in you. That's why I will never advocate for any of them, even though I've dabbled in them. I speak from experience. You might be able to manifest a couple of dollars, but your character is not going to be the best, okay? You're going to have a lot of pride and ego, and at that point, your downfall is impending, okay? It's very dangerous. Now, the fifth thing is to pursue purpose, alignment, and fulfillment versus external validation and society's version of success. And I'm speaking as somebody who has pursued both of them, okay? The first part of my life was me pursuing external validation and society's version of success, building my career in finance, doing all of these things, having all of the bells and whistles, the nice job, all of these things. It never fulfilled me. I need you to understand that until you get serious about learning why you were placed on this earth and walking in that purpose, the things you do will never fulfill you. No amount of vacations or shopping or relationships or whatever else you use to fill the void will ever take away from the pain and the void that you feel when you know you're out of purpose, when you know you're settling in life. You can put on makeup, you can change your appearance, you can buy things, you can go on vacations, you can have the hobbies, but if at least 8 hours of your day every single day is spent in a career that reminds you that you are settling and that you refuse to have the courage to go after the things that you genuinely want because you're afraid of for whatever reason, all of these other things that you use to distract you will never help. It will never help. I'm speaking from experience. The best thing for you to do is to figure out why you are here, why you were placed on this earth, and to start walking in that purpose. And that starts with God, because if you want to know, you have to go to the person who created you, the person who placed you here, right? As somebody who was atheist, when I was atheist and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life, I had no answers. I was dabbling over here, dabbling over there, trying to fit external validation and society's definition of success because I didn't know why I was here. My purpose was made clear to me and was revealed to me as I grew in my relationship with God. He worked everything out for my good, just like he said. He made all of the pieces make sense. He made all of it make sense. And the thing is, I know you can see people who are successful, who have a lot of money, and they may not have the best relationship with God. But you never know what's happening behind closed doors. That's why I see a lot of people, expire even when they're rich, because fulfillment is found in the presence of God. Joy is found in the presence of God. Peace is found in the presence of God. If you know, right? You find these things in the presence of God. Not even in your purpose, but in the presence of God. He reveals your purpose. He gives you instructions. I'm speaking from experience, y'all. I'm speaking from experience as somebody who lived in the world and then decided to give that up and put God above everything. Happiness is temporary. Happiness comes from happenstance. Something good happens, so you're happy. Something bad happened, you're not happy. Joy is everlasting. Joy is unexplainable. Joy occurs whether something good or bad happens, because joy is found in the Lord. You stay in the presence of God, eventually you will be joyful, right? You get in the presence of God when things are going bad, you will have peace that surpasses all understanding. You get in the presence of God and you will feel a sense of love that is so overwhelming, that is beyond words and beyond logic, that even if things don't look like it's working out for you, even if you have all of these questions, all of that suddenly becomes silent when you experience the love of God, when you sit in the presence of God, right? I know this from experience. The reason a lot of people who live very mundane lives feel so miserable is not just because their life lacks novelty. A lot of it is because it's like your soul is rebelling against the fact that you are settling. Your soul is rebelling against the fact that you are spending the majority of your day, of your waking life, doing something that is not aligned with why you were here. You're spending the majority of your life living out of purpose. You're spending the majority of your life watching other people, talking about other people, doing everything but what you were placed here to do, right? And it's not something that's easy. It's not something that you just snap your fingers and then you can make a switch. Not everybody is fortunate enough to do that, right? But it is something that happens over time, that you have to work towards. It's literally your life. It's why you're here, right? But for me personally, when I was out of alignment, when I was pursuing other things that were not aligned with what I felt called to do, it could never erase, it could never make that feeling of betrayal towards myself go away. No matter how many vacations I took, no matter how many times I played tennis and went to Pilates and did all of the other things that I loved, it never went away. That void never went away. That feeling of you're betraying yourself by settling never went away. It wasn't until I finally took the leap of faith and I said, I am going to pursue everything that God called me to be. I'm going to be everything that God called me to be. It wasn't until I started doing that. It wasn't until I started walking in that. It wasn't until I stepped out on faith that I felt like I have been the best version of myself. I have been rebranding myself from the inside out. God has truly been developing my character and making me a better person. And the reason why all of these tips were based on your inner self, your life, your purpose, that type of thing, and not external, like look pretty, change your hair, all these things, is because the best transformation is the internal one. Your outsides will eventually catch up. But if you do all the work on the outside to make your life look pretty, get the nice things, look nice, do all of these things, all it can do is cover up a void at best and prolong you spiraling because, you're trying to make it enjoyable, but it will never fill the void. It will never solve the problem. When you think about rebranding your life, I want you to think of starting from the inside out, because the outside will always catch up. But you want to make sure that you have a base that is rooted in your faith, rooted in your purpose. You're doing the thing that God has called you to do. You have a relationship with God, so He's changing your character. You're becoming a better person. You love yourself. You accept yourself, and you're improving from that standpoint versus feeling like you're missing something, so you're performing or you hate yourself. You're making decisions quickly instead of wasting time procrastinating procrastinating, so now you have momentum and you're assessing areas of your life that needs improvement, like your relationships. And overall, you will become a better person. Overall, you will be rebranding from the inside out. It doesn't matter if your outside has not caught up with all of the work that you're doing yet. Eventually, it will happen. You will become a better person. You will be happier. You will feel lighter. God is going to change your character. You are going to be walking in your purpose, and you will feel genuine happiness and fulfillment from the inside out, instead of just looking pretty while you're covering up a void and just making everything about your life superficial. The best transformation to have is an internal one. Now, if you want 10 practical tips to implement that will actually help you change your life in the next 6 months, then I recommend watching my episode on 10 tips to change your life. But these are the practical things that I have done to truly help me transform internally and rebrand myself and become a better person and a happier person overall. And I really hope it helps. And that's all I have to say today, and I will talk to you next Sunday.